Okay, here we go. I'm live again. I hope this is working. I had some technical difficulties getting started, so I'm a few minutes late. I got a feeling my audio might not be synced up. And of course, the test went well. Everything was good there. And then now when I try to go live again, then it of course doesn't work. So we're gonna turn that off, and hopefully that should work. All right. If it's not, and anybody's watching this, please let me know. I got the chat open, so hopefully I'll get some feedback on this, just in case it's not working. All right. So yeah, here we go. I'm live. I'm here at home, and it's a strange time that we're living in. First and foremost, for my English students, I'm going to try to make these videos as useful to you as possible. That's the main reason why I'm doing this. And you guys need to get the chance to get your questions answered. You need the chance to talk to your English teacher. You also need to have the opportunity to see my face and have some sense of continuity with your regular day-to-day lives. It's really strange for you to be at home by yourselves or with family and not see friends, not see classmates, not see your teachers. So I thought it would be a good idea for us to do some live chats, and that would give you a chance to see what I'm up to, and it would give you a chance to interact with me, even though we're not in school and we don't have the chance to sit down in class like we normally would. Of course, you also have to do assignments, even though you're not at the school building. You're still students and you're still in school. So I will try to make some videos that address the questions you might have about the English assignments that you've got, and to offer some help and some explanations of some of the things that might be more difficult or more challenging. Just generally to talk about the situation, as you know, we're shut down because of a very unusual, unprecedented situation in the world today. There is a global pandemic. If you've been watching the news, and especially if you've read the news, you'll hear that word and read that word a lot, the word pandemic. And what that means is that there is a virus that has the name COVID-19, also called the coronavirus, maybe more commonly. That's what you've heard, the coronavirus. And in a short, brief explanation, and I'm by no means the most qualified to give you the total explanation of this situation, because that's far beyond my capacity as a teacher. I can introduce this topic and point you in the right direction of the sources that you should also look at to understand everything that's going on. But I'll try to explain briefly. If you don't already know, there is a virus that has extremely high levels of being contagious, and it is spreading extremely quickly, and it is spread all over the world. And the first reported cases were in China, and they have risen rapidly in China, and has very quickly spread throughout the world. So the virus has been traveling from country to country, place to place, the way the viruses do, through people, right? Through human beings and their movement and their communication with each other and face-to-face context, right? Physical contact and contact not just with other people, but with surfaces, door handles, all kinds of situations where people are in close quarters together, and so as a result, the videos that you're seeing from around the world now are showing that being any closer than
within a meter or 2 to 3 feet is dangerous because you could easily catch the virus. It's been said that it's most dangerous for people who are older or who have underlying health conditions. That's the two things we keep hearing the most, but there are definitely cases of people who are younger and have become extremely sick, and some have actually lost their lives. So as a result, we all need to do our part and be careful and not take this situation lightly, right? So being out of school is a consequence of that. We're taking the precaution to avoid spreading this virus, not just to each other, but also to the people that we might come in contact with in our day-to-day lives, especially people who might be vulnerable to this disease and might have more dire health consequences as a result of contracting the virus, right? So a young person might not necessarily show very serious symptoms. Children seem to not be showing many serious symptoms. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. But right now, fortunately for children and for young people, they seem to be able to recover pretty quickly. But a lot of folks have become extremely sick. And what we're trying to avoid as a global population is situations where the hospitals and medical facilities can't care for the number of sick people, right? That's what we're most worried about, is not just that the virus would spread, but that the people who become extremely sick would be in numbers greater than we can care for. And that's what we're trying to avoid by staying home and by avoiding physical contact with each other. The social distancing is the term that we're hearing a lot. Right? Something that I wanted to bring your attention to in case you aren't aware of this, and it ties in with our English lessons in this final period of the school year. The theme that we have is something called News and the World, which is a pretty fitting theme for what we're all dealing with right now, and something that you should be aware of during this global pandemic is that one of the most reliable news sources has made all of the coverage that they do of this event free. And that news source is the New York Times. So if you have not had a chance to look at the New York Times before, you should check it out. It is what we call a newspaper of record. It is a standard bearer for news content, and you should be able to read the articles for free right now, because the implications of the information are extremely important, not just for people in the United States, but for around the world, right? So right now, if you want to get accurate news from extremely qualified professional journalists that will give you the best and most accurate information that they can give, I highly recommend that you check out the New York Times. Later on, for my English students, there will be some articles that I assign for you to read that come from the New York Times. So you should be ready to have a look at those articles in the coming days and weeks. So right now we're planned to go back to school at the end of this month. We have to stay tuned and see what happens. We don't know. We don't know what will happen. We don't know if we will be going back to school at the end of March or not. But we're going to find out. But no matter what happens, I'm still your teacher. I'm still going to do my job to make sure that you get what you need, and do my best job to prepare you, even though I can't be with you in person. I can be with you through video. We can communicate online, and we can still try to hold class online if that's any help. I'm going to continue to do that. So of course I'm looking for you guys to give me some feedback on how I can do things maybe a little better, and we'll go from there. We'll do what we've got to do to make this work, right? Okay, so to fulfill the one of the promises I made about this video, I'm going to do a segment of every video where I talk specifically about some kind of grammar or English related issue, and I gave an assignment earlier this week, a grammar assignment on a website called grammatip.com, and there were some questions about the assignment that I thought would be best if I just go ahead and answer. This is for Danish students, right? So if you're watching and you're not in my English class and this video is really weird, well, that's why. If you're not familiar with why I'm doing this, this really is intended mainly for my English students here in Denmark. And for my English students in Denmark, I have to say things like that because I think just in case somebody decides to watch this, it would be weird not to explain that. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so let's have a quick look at grammatip, and the first thing we're going to talk about is the collective nouns. All right. So, website introduces this topic in Danish, and short and sweet, a collective noun is a noun that has more than one thing inside of it. A better explanation, it says in Danish, it's a group that is composed of single parts or single individuals. Obvious example would be a family, right? A family has several members. There's a lot of people in a family, but when you say the word family, you can be referring to the group as a single thing, or you can be referring to the individuals as several individual things, which would be plural, right? Flertal, it's plural. Ental, that's singular, right? In English, we say singular and plural. So the examples they give here, the government is another example. They say in this case, the government, right, the institution, the government is determined to fight poverty, right? So in this case, the government is a single entity. The government is one thing. So the verb that you have to use there would be is. If you are referring to the government in plural form as the members of the government, right, then this sentence down here would apply. The government are divided. I don't particularly like that example, but it's illustrating what we're talking about here, which is that the way that you can refer to, oh, by the way, my kids are also home, so in case you hear any funny noises in the background or shouting like my son right now, that's because they're also home from school. That's just part of what we're doing here. So, all right. But to go back to what I'm talking about, so this says the government are divided. I don't like this example because I would usually use the word the government as a singular noun. And if I wanted to be specific about there being several members, well, then I would just go ahead and say that I'm talking about several members, and I would actually say that in the sentence and say, for example, the members of the government are divided, right? So it's grammatically correct to say the government is divided or the government are divided, but I don't like that second example because it's a little unclear that you're using the word in plural form, right? But in any case, I'll just go through a couple of the actual questions in the first assignment there. So you're getting some of the answers, but that's okay because this is just for practice. It's not for a grade, and then we'll go further and talk about some of the more complicated examples with this. Okay, so let's just have a look back here. So if we're going to go down here, it says to try. The first step is to write the right form of the word to be. And in this case, they use the example of the crew, right? The crew, the team. And in this very first example, the crew is a singular entity, right? So that means that we use the form to be, which would be is. The crew is very large, right? This is basic English, getting the form of to be correct to make a sentence. This is super important that you guys can do this. In the second example, the crew, and then it says we have to use the word disagree, and we have to change it to the correct form. So if we're talking about the crew as a group, the group has several individuals in it, and if we're going to use it as a singular entity, we would say the crew disagree with each other, but that doesn't sound correct in this case, and that's because we're not using the crew as a singular entity as we did up here. In this case, we're talking about the crew members who apparently disagree with each other, and in this case, the crew disagrees with each other. Disagrees with each other on a matter. Let's see if we got that right. And it is, oh, how embarrassing. This says that we got it wrong. The crew disagrees with each other is incorrect. But if we say the crew members disagree with each other, then that would make sense, right? You would say the crew members disagree. They disagree. So if we write disagree here, what happens then? We get it right. But again, in most common way to do this, you would actually have to say disagrees, because if you don't actually specify crew members, this sounds really weird. I mean, for me, I get it. This Danish website is saying this is the right way to do it. The crew disagree with each other. What you have to imagine doing is actually adding the crew members, right? Because if you say members, even though it's not there, that makes this make sense, because then you're talking about plural, right? The crew members disagree with each other on the matter. It sounds very strange to say the crew disagree with each other on the matter, but in this case, the way that they're using this collective noun, the verb has to match it as it being, they, plural, disagree with each other. That's what we're after here. So, all right, we'll take the next one. We'll just go further, and it says, okay, so now we're using either is or are in past tense, or in past tense would be was or were. Is or are is obviously present tense. And this says the class is or are very skilled at German. So if we are saying that the class as a whole is very skilled at German, then it would be is, right? If we are going to switch that around and say the students in the class, then we would say the students are very skilled at German, right? But I'm going to go through this one and we'll see, and I can see why there were questions about this, because I don't think they're being very clear. But we'll do our best with this, right? Okay, so the next one is the army, and the key here to remember is that there might be other words in the sentence that gives you a clue as to whether or not they mean the army as a singular or plural entity. So in this case, it says the army blank always fighting but never among themselves. Well, themselves is definitely plural, right? So if we use themselves as our key to this, the army, and if we just say they, it would have to be are always fighting but never among themselves. In that case, it makes the most sense to say the army are always fighting but never among themselves, right? We are talking about themselves, the example being plural, right? Flertel. Okay. Next one, the choir. The choir blank forced to cancel the concert. Well, are we talking about the members of the choir, or are we just talking about the choir by itself? If we're just saying the choir, the group, the single group, then we say the choir is forced to cancel the concert. Right? I'm going to go down to the next one. Number 4, the entire crowd blank at the end of the play. And in this case, oh, and you know, we can also switch these to past tense, right? So in this case, go back to number 3 for a second. I would say the choir was forced to cancel the concert. That's a group decision. They did that as a group. It was forced to cancel the concert. Okay, number 4, the entire crowd. Again, we're going to go to past tense here at the end of the play. Something that already happened. The entire crowd. The entire crowd. So that's one big group there was applauding at the end of the play. If we said the members of the audience were applauding at the end of the play, that would make sense too. But in this case, we're going to say was. All right. Okay. The crew getting along very well. The crew was, or the crew were getting along very well. Well, it depends on what we mean here. Are we talking about the individual members, or are we saying that the whole crew got along very well? By the way, if I get these wrong, it's only because, well, you know, I can easily justify how you can understand these with both, and they are tricky. And in some cases, this might not be clear, right? So me getting it wrong doesn't mean I can't speak English. I can obviously speak English, but my colleagues who design these things are going to be using standard grammatical rules to define these tasks. And we may not necessarily agree, partly because they often use British English, and I'm an American, and I've learned American English, and so in some of these really specific examples, it might very well have a disagreement, but that doesn't mean that I can't help you get the right answer, at least most of the time. Okay, so the crew. In this case, you could make this sentence a couple of different ways. You could say the crew is getting along very well. You could also say that the crew are getting along very well. I'm going to say the crew is getting along very well, and we'll see what the answer is at the end of this. I can explain why you could use both in this case. Depends on what is intended there. Okay. Here we go. Here's a real clear example. The government blank accused of fraud by its opponents. Okay, so we have another, we have a possessive pronoun here. And this possessive pronoun, it's, right? This gives us the clue we need, that we are talking about the government as a single entity. Okay, so in this case, we're also, confronted with whether we want to do this in present tense or past tense. I could say the government is accused of fraud by its opponents. In this case, you could also say the government was accused of fraud by its opponents. I'm going to go with past tense on this. And I believe that that's probably the right answer here. But you could easily say the government is accused of fraud by its opponents. Number 7, the government blank divided on the matter of the cutbacks. Usually when they do 2 in a row with the same entity like this, they want you to switch, right? And is the government divided with itself, or are the members in the government divided? And are we referring to those members, that group of members, as individuals, several individuals? In this case, I think it is the latter. It is the government were divided on the matter of cutbacks. That's my best guess on that. Okay, number 8, the band is or are playing in front of the largest audience in their career. You could also do this in past tense. The band was or were playing in front of the largest audience of their career. Either one of these works, right? How do we know which one to use? Well, we have the possessive pronoun in the sentence there, which is a possessive pronoun for plural, a plural noun, right? So in this case, they, the band, they were playing in front of the largest audience in their career. Okay, number 9, the staff. Again, the staff, they either are helping their customers, or the staff as a group is helping their customers. Well, there, that possessive pronoun again tells me that we're talking about several individuals. They fall under that title, the staff, right? But in this case, we're talking about them as a plural group. And if we do this in present tense, it's the staff are helping their customers in different parts of the store. You could also do it you can do it in present or past, right? You can say they in present tense they are. You can say in past tense that they were. My son is knocking on the window. He wants my attention, even though I'm working right now. Hi, son. How you doing, bud? All right. Yeah, this is not a good time, bud. I'm doing a live video, man. Yeah. Hey guys, listen. I'm just gonna cut back here. This part of doing this thing live is that I can't control what happens around me. So my son decided to interrupt a little bit there. My apologies. All right, keep it going here. We're gonna go back to number 9. And I'm really sorry that this keeps happening, but you know, that's just part of how this is going to work with live video. So yeah, anyway, let's get back to business here. And have a look at this. Okay, we're still talking about collective nouns. We left off with the staff is or are helping their customers in different parts of the store. Possessive pronoun there gives me the clue that it is they, the staff, which is plural, and they are helping their customers in different parts of the store. Okay, last one, the police. Oh, the police. The police. Now this is interesting. The police is or are often portrayed as people eating donuts and being fat. Right? How do we know what to use here? Well, the sentence gives you a clue. It says people, which is plural, right? But it's also another collective noun, eating donuts and being fat. If we wanted to swap that out and say that it was, I don't know, something that was a collective noun, but that was clearly plural, right? Let's just say police officers are often portrayed. That would make sense, right? Because we are talking about several individuals doing something here. We're not necessarily talking about the group as a single thing. We're just saying that all of the members in that group, all of those individuals, are often portrayed. So in this case, we're going to go with are. Now, to further my embarrassment, I'm sure some of these are going to be incorrect, but that doesn't mean I can't explain why I've answered the way that I have. So let's see what it says when we go further here. Yeah, and of course we have this one with the crew because it's talking about the members, right? And again, the crew can be referred to as a unit. It's not specific enough for me to say one way or the other. But in this case, what they're talking about, the crew members, they are getting along very well. And I guess when I think about that, yeah, the sentence makes a bit more sense if we say that the crew members are getting along very well. So it's tricky, right? It's tricky. What's more important to say, though, in this case, is that in the written exam, you're not necessarily going to have to get questions like this where they're looking so specifically about they're not looking so specifically about is and are in these kinds of questions. Like the format of the exam is really specific, and the grammar part doesn't ask questions like this. The written part, where you have to write your own sentences, you do want to get the is and the are correct. But I would say that there's a bit of flexibility in terms of how you use those. So I don't want you to get totally hung up on this. I mean, you can even see I get something wrong according to this standard, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't write a sentence that is still grammatically correct, right? And in a case where you use a collective noun like the crew, and you say that it is doing something, that's okay. If I'm reading that exam and I'm correcting it, I wouldn't mark that as incorrect, and I don't think most censors would. What you do want to avoid are the really egregious, really bad is and are errors. Saying things like Donald Trump are doing this or that. That's really bad. Don't do that. Don't take the really basic examples of individual single people and then use the plural form of to be with it, right? And vice versa. You don't want to say that there are the exams is really difficult. That's terrible. That would be wrong. That would be obviously wrong. So don't do stuff like that on the exam. But in these cases, these really, really specific examples with collected nouns, I think it's safe to say you have some leeway. When we go to the oral exam, then you definitely have some leeway because you'll be talking about a topic that you've had a chance to think through. And what's really important then is to be consistent about what you decide to say and how you decide to refer to things like collective nouns. Right? So there's that. All right, I'm going to go over the second one, the irregular verbs, and this will be a lot shorter, and hopefully I won't have too many surprise guests on this segment, so bear with me. But let's have a look at the next section, which is about irregular verbs. So irregular verbs, I'm going to be honest with you, it's an issue where you're going to just have to learn some words. And you're going to have to learn some new words and remember them because there aren't really many rules to follow about irregular verbs other than to know how they change form and when to use those forms. But each individual word changes to a form that is not necessarily obvious. So when we look at this, I'm going to read some of the examples and we'll go through and this hopefully will be a little bit easier. There's 6 sections of this with 50 irregular verbs in English. The instructions in Danish, it says here are 50 of the most used verbs in English. And they are all irregular. So, so what we're looking at now, words like become, begin, break, bring, and it goes on in alphabetical order there, which is pretty nice. These change form for past tense to very, very different forms that are totally irregular. And it's not necessarily obvious how they change form, right? And sometimes it's just changing one letter, like with get and got. That's a common word, but you just have to know that. You can't add ed to everything, right? And some of them are really simple and basic, and you just need to know how they change. Buy changes to bought. Choose changes to chose. The only way to get that right is to know it. Okay. So there's a few of them where their past tense looks regular, right? Like showed, that's fine. But when we change what they call this kort tilleggsform, this is where you've got a verb that changes to a past participle form. Like you would say, he has shown us how to answer questions on the exam. So when we switch to past tense, straight up normal past tense, you would use showed, right? But when you need to add something like has or had, then that verb changes to shown with an N, right? So that's the only real difference there. Same thing with speak, and changes to spoke in past tense, and then spoken, right? For example, I have spoken with the school leader about teaching away from the school. So that's what they're talking about there. Another common one would be know, knew, and known, right? He knew what to do to help his students. It is not known how long this will last for. Just giving some quick examples there. All right, so if we actually go ahead and look at some of the tasks in here. Let's see here. Are they? Yeah, here we go. Then we can see what we're working with. Okay. So the example here, it says they, and the verb we have to use is where. And we're translating here, right? Die haft eens kjole på til festen. So where in past tense is wore. They wore identical dresses to the party, right? It changes from where to wore. There's no ed at the end of that. It's an irregular verb. Okay, next one. He lå katten smule udenfor. He let the cat slip outside. So there's one where the word doesn't change, even though it's past tense, right? It stays the same. Okay, here we go. What's right? And here we go. Oh God, again, seriously. They wore identical dresses to the party. That's right. This is crazy. This is totally crazy. They wore identical dresses to the party. There's no other way to say that. So I can't change it, right? So there you have it. I can't change this to something that's not correct. That's a mistake. That is kind of surprising that they actually did this. There's there's no other way to fix it. If they're I don't know what they're expecting there, to be honest with you, right? So I have to admit that if this thing has errors in it and there's things that are wrong, I'm really sorry. I didn't design it, but I am using it, and I can only take responsibility for the fact that I've assigned it to you. And if there are errors like that in it, I'm going to address them. But I can't change the website. So apologies for that. That's terrible. Listen, I think the best thing for me to do from here is that we've gone live for almost an hour now. If you have questions that you want me to answer, please write to me in our messenger thread. You can also leave comments on the video, I guess. I sound like a YouTuber now. I don't really want to be. I'm just using this as a teaching tool. I don't care if you subscribe to the channel, and I don't care if you like the video. I mean, I care if you like, if you like that I'm doing this, but I don't need you to give me a thumbs up. I really don't care. That's not why I'm doing this. So, yeah. For now, I'm gonna say stay safe and stay tuned, and we'll stay in touch. If you have questions, write to me. You have my email. You guys can write to me on Messenger, and I will try to answer the questions as best I can. And I will keep updating the class blog website, which I gave to you before, but I'll give it to you again, just so you can have a look at that. Any videos that I do, I will post to YouTube, and I will also post it here on this website, which I'll show on screen right now. And that website is, of course, if it lets me do this, come on, transition. There we go. English.brandonlewis.dk. So we got a couple of posts now. There will be more in the days and weeks to come. All right, but I guess that's all I got for right now. That's it. And I will be in touch. I'll see you guys soon. And as I said, stay tuned and stay safe. See you guys later.